What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Make Money and Have Fun show. I was just chatting with my guest backstage, and she was asking me if I'm actually going live every single day this month. And yes, it is true. Although I have to confess, I am trying to take off weekends as much as I can. Although we're out here on a Saturday, on a snowy, wet, sloppy Saturday, at least where I'm coming from in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. There's about a foot and a half of snow outside. That's probably going to need to get shoveled again in another hour or so. But hopefully where you're tuning in from, it's bright and sunny out there. And look, here's the deal. For those of you that have been with me from the beginning, you'll know that I started this show back in, I think, September of 2020. It was actually my first show that I did. And as soon as I started, I knew that this was the best decision I made in 2020. I was just interviewing my friends once a week. And I said, you know what? I got to grow this show. I got to take it to the next level. So I'm going live every single day this month for the month of February with different authors. I got a book coming out in a few months. I've written 2 books, and I got so many amazing people coming on here talking about what it means to be an author, how to write, how to get your book out there, and how to tell your story. So let's get into it.
My motto in life is make money and have fun. I'm on a mission to show everyone how to make money, yeah, and have fun. I'm all about making money and having fun.
All right, so I have a feeling that today's show is going to be one of the most fun shows I've had yet. Just from talking to my guest behind stage, she's got some cool stuff going on in her life. And actually, really funny, fun story. Yesterday, I interviewed who's now a good friend of mine, Steven Anderson, who wrote the Bezos letters, a really fascinating story about risk assessment inside of businesses. And this guest today, she actually lives, I think she said, less than a mile or so away from him. So please, let's put our hands together for Miss Tonda Barron Solomon. What's up, Tonda?
Hi, Fred. How are you on this great cold Saturday?
I am doing amazing. I'm all bundled up in my basement, nice and warm. I got my audio going. I'm doing my show, and I'm just having a blast. How are you doing, Tonda?
I think that's fabulous. You know what, Fred? I'm actually in snow, too. I'm in Middle Tennessee. But we had this bizarre, I think it came off what the poor people in Texas have had. And we've got about 4 inches of snow on the ground, which never happens. We've had it for several days. And so we're having fun in ours. I know you have to shovel yours, but we're just taking it as an excuse to stay at home and eat a lot of soup and chili and just relax. So.
Yeah, 3 to 4 inches of snow is like the perfect amount when you're from Philadelphia. It's like it's
probably
not
anywhere.
Yeah, it's not a mess. It's enough to sled in. It's enough to build a snowman. It's enough to have a snowball fight. Do all the fun snow sports that you can do in it. But you can also move it out of the way.
Yeah.
We had like 6 inches the first time, another 3 inches the next time. Then we just had another snowfall about 2 days ago, another inch or two. And it's like all you can do is move it around. You can't get rid of it.
Yeah.
And you just keep moving it on top of itself. And now you got a 4-foot anyway. Look at us.
Here's what I do know, that by Monday, all of this will be gone because there's rain coming in and it's going to be 50-something on Monday. So it'll be gone. I don't have to live in it all the time like you do.
Ours will be here until May.
Oh, goodness.
I'll be driving down the shore and I'll see a mound of snow. Craziness.
Oh, it's what we get used to, right?
Exactly.
And making the best of it. That's what you're doing. You're in your basement making the best of it. I think you're having a fun time.
The cool thing about snow, if there is any cool thing about it, is that if you're cold, just put on more clothes.
Exactly. That's true.
That's my landlord coming out there. That's what I tell my tenants. When they call me up and say it's cold in here, I say, okay, put on more clothes.
I don't think I could live where it was that cold all the time. So I don't like being cold. I can handle the heat, but I don't like the cold. Maybe I should move to Florida. So
I'll move there with you. I mean,
I
I love the heat. I love the sun. I love being, out in the sun. I'm a beach guy. I'm a nature guy. The cold,
I like the water, but not when it's frozen. So.
That's actually a good point. I like that. That's a good point. Yeah. What's going on? We got Emilio tuning in with us. Thanks for being here, Emilio. He said, blessings to Fred and Tonda. Let it snow. He wants an excuse to drive his Jeep.
All right. Yeah.
So, Tonda, let's talk to our friends here. Tell us, who are you? What do you do? Tell us your story, Tonda. Okay. We want to know.
Well, Fred, goodness gracious, first and foremost, for most of my life, I have been a wife and mom. I've been married for 36 years, 36 years. And I have 4 grown sons and 2 little grands. And that's kind of what I've spent a lot of my life doing. I went to college. I wanted to be Katie Couric at the time. I wanted to be on, that welcome everybody to the morning. Good morning, America. And just, God had other ideas. I married a guy from a small town in South Georgia, and we moved back there after we finished law school. He finished law school, and we raised our kids there. And during the course of all of that, I always loved to write. I have a degree in public relations and communications, and I love to tell a story. I was good at bedtime stories and those kind of things with my boys, and just writing and everything. Around year 18 in my marriage, we hit a real big snag, something that I would say most marriages don't recover from. There was an affair, and we were living in a small town, and the 2 of those together are not a great cocktail. But you know what? We just made up our minds that we wanted longer. We wanted to see what would happen if we hung in there and stuck it out. And so we did. In the course of all of that, we moved from small town South Georgia to Middle Tennessee. And we basically started over with nothing. I tell people we were kind of like the Beverly Hillbillies. We just loaded everything up and came. And it was a huge step of faith because my husband was an attorney, or is an attorney. And he left behind a very thriving practice. He was the county attorney in our community. So I applaud him for being committed to make the changes necessary for us to do that. In the course of all of this, I'm a person, I have a really strong faith in Christ. And so I grew a lot in a lot of ways because I was raised in church. And so my faith was kind of like inherited, sort of. It wasn't mine. It was kind of like a piece of china that had been handed to me, and I took good care of it, but it wasn't mine. I didn't own it. And I really had not road tested it. Well, that year, I was able to begin that test. And so for the next 10 years, really, it would just became this thing, a lifeline for me. My faith did. And it wasn't my faith, it was the person I believed in. So I want to make sure I say that. But anyway, fast forward, I wanted to write something to try to help other couples, and particularly women who go through that kind of thing in their marriages and such. And so I started trying to write, and I was writing and saying this, and it just sounded real preachy, like a sermon. And so I didn't want that. I wanted people to relate to my story. I wanted them to engage in my story. So I had begun a fiction piece. Again, I like to write. So I had started something, and I thought, I'm going to go and find that. It was my oldest son, who was an entrepreneur, a lot like you, Fred. Oh my goodness, y'all would love each other. He was the one that said to me, he said, Mom, you used to tell us the best stories. Why don't you take your story that you're trying to communicate and put it into a fiction story? And I just thought it was genius. And so I did. I picked it up and I began writing, and it just flowed from me. Well, you know what, Fred, and I'm going to show you. This is my book, Surviving Love. And it is a fiction story. This is not even my story. It's a story about marriage and infidelity and the choices that we have, but it is not my story. But I am the girl in the story. I think it's been said that any kind of fiction that people write, there's a little piece of the author in everything. I think even Stephen King, when he writes there's that little bit of twisted stuff. It's in all of us that we have a part of ourselves in all of our writing. And so that's what I did. I wrote this, and I've got 2 more that I want to write to tag onto it. And I'm going to say this, that people who've read my story, they tell you don't read the reviews. If you're an actor, whatever, don't read the reviews. Well, a lot of people have commented and said, it reads like a Hallmark story. I don't like the way it ends. Why does it always end with the infidel allowed to come home and all this stuff? And I think, you know what? You got to be true to your story. You got to tell your story the way you know it to be. And nobody can tell you who you should be in your story. You have to own who you are. That's just true in life. I get to get up, just like you said, you get up every morning and think, how can I make the world better today? I get to get up every morning and say, did I write what was me? Did I write what was true to me? And absolutely I did. And if you don't like it, that's okay, because that's who I am.
Yes, I love that. I read a book when I was writing my first book, so I'll show it here. So I wrote my first book when I was about 21 years old. Actually, I was 21 years old. And this was my first book that I ever wrote. And at the time, I was reading books on how to write, how to be a better writer, and all that kind of stuff. And one of the books that I read, it had a line in there that said, "You only ever write for one person, and that's yourself."
Yeah.
And when I read that, it kind of allowed me to shed all of the judgment that I had around writing, and to just write my authentic story, like you talked about. I blogged for about 4 years, and I actually stuck all my blog posts into my second book, which is this one right here.
Oh, okay.
And I started to write about writing as just a fun way to kind of take the thoughts out of my head and put them onto a page.
Yeah.
And one of the things I wrote about it is I actually wrote 2 articles back to back. The first one is why you should become a writer. And the second one was why you should never become a writer.
Well, I need to read both of those.
Right? Exactly. That was the whole idea. I said, how can I get people to read more of my posts instead of just the one with a good title? I said, why don't I just give them polarizing titles, and then they get to read both of them?
Yeah.
And the idea was that writing these blog posts, and I did a series for a while where I was writing every single day. And I said, one of the difficulties is you're so authentic. I'm just coming out here and I'm being completely raw with people. Like,
Yeah.
here's the crap that's going wrong. Here's the stuff that's going right. And I'm laying it all on the table for you. Here it is.
Right.
And it helps you develop, I think, that thick skin and that tough sense of who you are. I actually like reading the comments on Facebook and on YouTube, and, the reviews for the show and all that kind of stuff, because it helps me, I think, develop my mindset further. When it's like you want to grab somebody and be like, why would you, like yesterday, Steve Anderson was laughing about some of the 1-star reviews that he got. He got a 1-star review because someone ordered a package from Amazon that came late. And he's like, what does that have to do with my book?
Nothing to do with the book. No, absolutely.
Exactly. And when you develop that thick skin and that mindset, I think that it just allows you to do the things that you want to do. So I love that story. That's super amazing.
I think, and it's so funny, as a writer, there's always been this, for years. I mean, I have spent a lot of time trying to develop my craft, trying to be better, so that when I do have time to write, which I don't have a ton of time to do that, but when I do have time to write, that I am my best and prepared and equipped, just like an athlete would, so that when their moment comes, they're prepared and they're ready. So I did all this research and work, and, Anne Lamott, reading her and different people, and they're like, if you're really a writer, you can't help but write. Well, I mean, I just don't agree with that. I mean, yes, it's in you. I mean, oh my gosh, if I had written all the great stories that have come into my mind, I would surely be a best-selling novelist by now. I can guarantee it. But, as a person who cares about other people, I mean, there's a lot of people who depend on me in my life. That's just who I am and where I am in my life. So yes, it's in me. And I think that we read all these things telling us what we should be and who we should be. And we just got to figure it out for ourselves. And we got to make our lives work for ourselves. That's like that waking up every morning and saying, how can I make the world better? Well, today, my way to make the world better might be to make my grandkids breakfast and make sure they get their homework done. But tomorrow, my way to make the world better might be to get out and go sign books on the sidewalk, which I've loved doing. This is my favorite thing to do, is book signings, because Fred, I'll have so many people come by and they'll pick up my book and they'll read, infidelity, blah, 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 but then there'll be that one person who needs my story, and it just makes my day. And there's always one. And if that one person comes along, it's worth it.
Absolutely. I totally get that. I get, especially in my field, I get a lot of haters and a lot of raving fans.
Yeah.
It's always one or the other. You never really get like the lukewarm person with what I'm doing, and it's the raving fans that keep me moving along. They keep me motivated. They keep me inspired, and they make me do what I want to do.
Well, Fred, we live in a society that says of people who have. No, not dissing anybody. I agree with platforms 1,000%. But we establish a platform and we're an authority on this, and this is what you got to do. And I think it begins to marginalize a lot of people. I think the important thing to do, and what I love about what you're doing is to inspire people and motivate them to become who they should be. I don't need to be you, and you don't need to be me. There doesn't need to be another Tonda in the world, I can assure you. But if I can encourage somebody else to figure out what their calling is and what their passion is, or help them survive another day. Sometimes it's just about helping somebody get through the day. That's the important thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, Tonda, I gotta ask: Do you consider yourself or call yourself a writer today? Like, would you say that that's your title?
It's taken me a long time to say that, but I do, Fred. I do. Crazy thing, but the other night it was like 10 degrees outside and our doorbell rang, and of course our neighborhood has a no what do you call solicitation policy, whatever. So I went to the door, and of course it was two sweet young girls with AT&T there to solicit something, blah blah blah. We got into a great conversation, and all of a sudden one of the girls says, "What do you do?" And I said, "I'm a writer." And I thought, because immediately when you say that, somebody's going to say, "What have you written? Are you a bestseller? Have you da-da-da?" And, you feel like you got to justify yourself. But I'm here to tell you, I am a writer, and I think I'm a great writer. Do I have the time to devote to my craft like I'd like to? No, but it takes one book to change everything, and I'm working on it. So I am a writer, yes.
Exactly. I mean, the funny thing for me was I wrote my first book at 21 years old for two reasons. The first reason was I wanted to prove to myself that I could do it.
Mm-hmm.
But the second reason was I felt like I had something to say.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is the biggest and most important part with it. So let's kind of jump back a little bit then. Since you call yourself a writer today, did you ever think that was going to be your title?
Oh, golly, no, I didn't.
That's usually the way it goes.
Well, it's because, and I think it's because it took me 10 years to get this done, because I was busy doing all those other things. And, this is a great time of year, by the way. If you wish you could be in the sun, or if you're getting ready to go on spring break, this is a great book to take and read. And I think that you'll be encouraged. And honestly, my favorite thing is for somebody to engage me in this topic, because I have lived it and I know my truth. So, if anybody wants to talk about it, if anybody wants to know, well, why did you do this, or, whatever, please reach out. I've got all my information in the back of this book, and it's on Amazon. You can find it there. I'm on Goodreads, and everybody that comments, I try to respond to them, because it matters to me, not to defend myself, but just to say, you get to say your case, I want to state mine too,
Exactly.
And so I think that taking 10 years to write something makes you go, well, does that really qualify me as a writer, or does it just mean I finally got something done? No, it means I'm a writer. Some stories are hard to tell. This was not an easy story to tell, because I lived it. Again, it's not my story, because my story is private to me because of other people who are involved in my story. I have 4 great young men that my husband and I have raised, and I respect them and who they are. And so, but that's who I am in the story. That's me. That is me in that story. And so if it happened for me, I'm not saying it will happen for you, but it can happen for you.
I love that. I gotta jump back to when you were talking about there can only be one Tonda in the world, and there can only be one Fred Basimo in the world, because that really exemplifies what this show and this mantra of make money and have fun is all about. Mm-hmm. The idea is that there's so many people out there who are not living in alignment, and basically that's what I've been calling it. I put a Facebook post up earlier today about being fully aligned. And what happens is a lot of people are out there chasing something that they think is going to make them a lot of money, but not bring them a whole lot of happiness. Or they're doing the opposite. True. Yes. Right? And the opposite is true as well, too, where they're having a ton of fun and just living life and having a blast, but they can't pay their bills every month, and they don't have this sustainability to carry them through with what it is that they want to do. So I love the fact that coming from a perspective of individuality and authenticity, where it's like, you tell your story, you do it your way, and you know what? Your way is the right way because you picked it.
That's right.
That's what make money and have fun is really all about, right? A lot
Yeah.
of people think that it's financial literacy. They think that it's investing. They think that it's all that kind of stuff, which is in there.
Yeah.
But really, it's about learning how to live fully aligned
Yeah.
and just living in alignment in that sense. And
I was reading an article yesterday about I can't remember who the actor. It was an actor, and he said that he gets up, goes to work, and he loves what he does, and he's always loved what he does. And he said that he felt so sorry for people who said, I've got this, this, and this, but they dread going to work every day. And I think there's a lot to be said for our attitude in what we do. I mean, I've got one sweet son who he just wants to save the world, meaning he wants to do good for everybody. He'd probably love to enroll in the Peace Corps and do that for the rest of his life. But he knows that he's got some bills to pay and that kind of thing. And so, I'm hoping and I am praying that he can find that balance to volunteer and make people's lives better, but pay his bills, because what he does is very much needed. But it's not a lot of fun. I mean,
yeah,
but it's something he's got to do. And for us I like that alignment, going to the chiropractor, everything's better when I'm aligned.
Exactly. I always actually use the chiropractor as an example. People go to the chiropractor to get their body aligned.
Yeah.
But we walk around without our finances and our fulfillment aligned. And when we can create that alignment, that's when we achieve success. And like you said, it could be something as simple as, being part of the Peace Corps. It doesn't, I'm not saying that everybody has to make $100,000 a month,
Yes.
To make money. And I'm also not saying that, you need to ride roller coasters all day to have fun. It looks different for everybody. I mean, people, you could be happy making $25,000 a year, and you could pay your bills on time. You could, live fruitfully and prosperously in that space, which is fine. It's that, that's fine for you. If that's where you want to be, that's fine. Right. And that's the whole idea behind it, is that it's all about creating that alignment with everything that we do. But enough about me. We got to get back to this.
No, it's good. It's good. Can I share an analogy with you that I love?
Yes, please do.
Because, all right, so I'm a very serious person. I really am. And things are heavy to me and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I am married to a man who laughs all the time. In fact, he laughs when I get hurt, and it really irritates me. But I've learned to use that, and we laugh at each other. So it's good. It's good. We need that balance in our lives. We need people who take things seriously, and we need people who laugh at situations. But I heard this little story a long time ago, and I cannot give credit. I don't know where it came from. But the story about a woman who woke up one morning and she had 3 strands of hair left on her head. And so she got up that morning and she said, I think I'll braid my hair today. And so she did. The next morning she woke up, she only had 2 strands of hair left. And so she said, I think I'll part my hair down the middle. So she was happy, went on about her day. The next morning she woke up, she had 1 strand of hair left on her head. And she said, I think I'll wear a ponytail today. And she was happy and she went on her way. And then finally she woke up that last morning and all of her hair was gone. And of course she said, yay, I don't have to fix my hair today. That's what I have to kind of keep in my mind as a very serious person. Don't take everything so seriously. There is good in absolutely everything. And I think that helps keep us aligned when we can find joy in things.
Exactly. Life is a get to, not a got to, right?
Exactly.
Our biggest curses in life are our biggest blessings when we know how to look at them the right way.
Yeah.
Coming from the investment space, I tell this story often, but my story is I started out as a real estate investor at 22 years old, and I built, a small real estate empire in essence, and I watched it all burn down around me because of everything that I had, done wrong.
Yeah.
And I always tell the story. I remember I had to borrow $100 from a friend of mine just to get home from a seminar that I was at in Las Vegas, Nevada. And it took me months, Tonda, months to pay him back $100.
Yeah.
Like, how embarrassing is that? Like, I'm this 24-year-old kid who's building a real estate empire, and I can't pay somebody $100 for months.
Yeah.
And as I look back at it, I look at so many lessons that I learned from that, so many blessings, so many things that came out of it that now have made me into a better human being, into a different type of human being. And when we start to give it that perspective and that way of looking at it, it becomes fun. It becomes exhilarating. I actually just left a seminar today that, the host asked, have you ever felt terrified before? Of course, everybody has. And have you ever felt exhilarated before? Of course, everybody has. Have you ever noticed that those feelings are exactly the same? They manifest themselves the same chemically inside of your body, but there's two different mindsets or results from them. And so when we shift the way that we feel about it, or what the meaning behind it is, that's when everything changes at that point.
That's really good, Fred. I like that a lot. You got something great this morning. That's good.
I just say what comes to mind. I don't plan any of this. I love it. So Tonda, we got
2 weeks ago I was in Disney World and riding what's the one inside the is it not Thunder Mountain, Space Mountain, where it's in the dark and you can't see where you're going and you don't know what's coming next. And I rode it 3 times because I was like scared to death and I was so exhilarated at the same time. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Perfect. So Tonda, we got to get back. We got a couple people in here who are in a space where they want to write a book, but they never have. They're the aspiring author.
Yes.
So what kind of advice would you give to somebody who wants to write a book, but they never have? What would you say to that person?
Well, I think that first and foremost, there has to be some motivation. There's got to be something that you want to say. I have a good friend who writes. There's a lot of creatives where I live, in the area where I live. And so it's a blessing because we learn from each other. And one time she told me that she put a little Post-it note on her computer that says, what I'm really trying to say is, what are you really trying to say? And what do you really feel like you have to say? I think that's uber important to know, what have you got to tell? For me, it was that I had to tell what I learned about myself and about just marriage in general when I went through my own crisis. For other people, it's other things. You have to tell people it's important to you how to make money and have fun. I mean, that's something inside of you. So first of all, you got to figure out, what do I want to tell people? Because I think once you decide that, and if you can make yourself show up and write every single day, don't. Some people write and they edit themselves as they go. Some people just write and write and write and have volumes of writing. I edit as I go because to me, I go back and I think that's not exactly how I wanted to say that. And it helps me. But get something on paper, but make sure you're focused on what you're writing about. So what I really want to say is, if it's a blog post, what are you trying to say in that blog post? I think it's important that we are not buckshot, that we are like a focused rifle with a message, that we get our point across. I have a tendency to do that, to squirrel, to go off in different directions. I think so. To get started, you figure out what you got to tell a story about, and then you sit down and you start writing. And don't throw anything away. Don't discard anything, because when I started writing this book, I wrote probably the first 2 pages. Just one day off the top of my head, it came out. It was like, I got to write this. I filed it in my computer and I forgot about it. When I finally came back around and realized that this was the vehicle I needed, a fiction story to tell my kind of nonfiction story, immediately that popped in my mind, and I went back and I grabbed that and I pulled it forward. And then I started realizing that little things I had written along the way, I needed to incorporate. And if I had not written them down, even though at that point I didn't really know where it was all going, if I had not written it down, I probably would have forgotten it. So find out what you're writing about and then write. And don't throw anything away. Don't discard anything. Be intentional about hanging on to it, because sometimes, especially when, in my opinion, when you're writing fiction, you need emotion. Mm-hmm. And one day I might be on top of the world, and so that will flavor my writing. But the next day I might be mad as all get out at my husband, but I need that in my book. So write that, tell about that, because on the day that I'm happy again, I still need to tap into that emotion. I need to go and pull that back into my story. So I think it's important to figure out what you're writing about, write, save everything, and then believe in the timing. Timing is everything in life, period. So the timing of it, it will begin to come together. I think it's important. I have a person in my life who just motivated me. When are you going to get that story written? I actually had 2 or 3. When are you going to finish? When are you going to finish? It took a step of faith because I contacted, actually sent it out there to several publishers and got a little bit of response, but finally connected with somebody. I had to make myself do that because I don't know how for you, Fred, because yours is from a different perspective. But for me, it was kind of like when you have a baby, and if somebody looked at your baby and said, that baby's not very pretty, when you write, it's that way. It's you. It's a part of who you are, and you want everybody to love that baby, and they're not going to. But that making that first step, once you've got something that you think is good, put together, or even just the seeds of something good, because you'll do a lot of editing before it's ready.
Exactly. I totally resonate with that idea of, your book or your project being like a baby, right? As entrepreneurs, I mean, I hang out with a lot of people who are transitioning. They're in their 9 to 5 and they want to start investing, or they're working their job and they want to become a business owner of some kind. And we often run into our own trap, which is that we think that we've created the greatest product in the world.
Yeah.
And to us, it is. And that's the whole idea. That's the whole idea behind creating an avatar and a target market, is that you're just finding more of yourselves in the world. And you're like, I love this thing, so there's got to be other people out there who love this thing. But when you encounter somebody who doesn't love it, oftentimes you take that as a direct attack to you.
Yeah.
And it typically never has anything to do with you as a person or your morality or anything like that. It's just not a good fit.
Exactly.
And going through that process, like you said, can be daunting, especially for someone who hasn't developed that thick skin or that mindset yet. Hearing rejection and listening to haters. Like we were talking about comments earlier. Now I listen to haters' comments and I'm like, this is hysterical. Like,
yes.
It's just fun for me. I'm like, this is so cool. I'm going to get some popcorn and go through all my comments today.
What a great thing to do on a snowy Friday night.
Exactly. Why not?
But Fred, you go, all right. So like I go sometimes to stores that like discount store, not discount stores, like a Home Goods, or even I don't know if Tuesday mornings all over the country, but that's something we have in this part of the country. They have sections of books, a lot of coffee table books, beautiful books. And I'll pull them out and I'll look at them and I'll think, I've never heard of this author. I don't know who this person is. And now their book is here in the back corner of this store. But then I think, somebody needed that book, and maybe even I do. I've even had friends share with me a great book, and they're like, of all places, I found it in the back corner of this little bookstore or of this discount shop, or wherever. I found it at Goodwill. Somebody had given it away, and I bought it, and it has changed my life. We're not going to change everybody's life by what we write, but if we can make a difference, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, through what we write in 1 or 2 people's lives, it's really worth it. It is absolutely worth it.
That for me is paramount. People come to me a lot for financial coaching, and I always tell them that I ask them first and say, hey, do you know what money is? Can you give me a definition of money? And I do a lot of asking in my coaching, just because I want people to pull the answers out of them. And I get all kinds of answers. Money is currency. Money is paper. Money, whatever. And I always tell them the same thing. I say money is a byproduct of value creation. So the problem that most people have is they wake up in the morning and they say, how can I make more money today? And the problem with that question is that if you find a penny on the ground, your brain thinks you're victorious. Your brain's like, you won. You made more money today. Good job. It's not specific. What I do is when I wake up in the morning, I ask myself a different question. I say, how can I create more value today? And the more value I create, the more money flows to me as a byproduct of that.
Yeah.
And when you flip that script, it opens up the doors at that point. So you're absolutely right. It's all everything that we have, everything that we want in this world, we already have.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
just a matter of giving that value to everybody else to grow it from there. This is an amazing conversation, by the way.
I
I'm loving
know.
this.
I
This is
know.
so cool.
And I love, okay, so here's the thing. This is the best thing about today, period, is to ask anybody. Okay, like right after I got out of college and we married, we went back to my husband's small town. I worked in an accounting firm. That is probably like the best joke of your life, because I don't do money, I don't do math, I don't do any of those things. In fact, to this day, I'll tell people that at this particular accounting firm, great job, I loved it. I worked there till I had my first son. I say they probably go back in somebody's records and they'll say, oh, this is when Tonda worked here, because there's some mistake or something. Because I mean, I loved it and I gave it 100%, and I thought I did a really good job, but who knows? But that's who you are. Well, I'm sitting over here, this, I think middle-aged, somebody might say I'm a little past that, but I don't. Middle-aged, wife, mother, grandmother, who's has this, love relationship with Jesus. And also, people may not relate to that, but let me tell you that, Fred, I would pick up your book and I would buy it and I would open it, because I know I need to be better at that. And so I would read it going, I wouldn't read the whole book. I probably wouldn't. I would pick and choose. I would open, but if something grabbed me, I'd go, okay, I'm getting this. Okay. Again, I mean, I have volumes of books. I have stacks of books. I love books just in general. And so, I'll have a book and I'll pick it up and I'll thumb through it till I see where I highlighted something or I made a note in the margin, because that one little tidbit made me better. And again, that's what motivates you to write. You're going, I may write volumes and volumes. Being a wordy person as I am, I think I say so much. And then somebody will come back years later and go, you said this one thing that resonated with me. Yay.
Exactly.
I was successful. You were successful.
Mm-hmm. I do a lot of public speaking. I'll give 45-minute keynotes. And I always tell people, like, if you take one thing from this that changes your life, good. That's all I want. I mean, if a lot of the times I'm just regurgitating the same message 5 or 6 different ways.
Yeah.
Because I know that people hear differently, people interpret differently, and people need different languaging to understand something. And so if one person picks it up and it changes their life for the better, that was it for me. The coolest thing, I got to say, the coolest thing about this show is that all month I've hardly talked about books at all. It's so cool because it goes so far beyond the book.
Yeah.
Being a writer is much more than just putting words on a page and finding a publisher to publish you, right? Or publishing it yourself. It's about, some kind of change that you want to make for yourself, which typically is transmuting over to a group of people at that point, which is so cool.
I'm not a big fan of exercise. I like how I feel when I exercise, and I like how I look when I exercise, but I'm not a fan of it. But I read something this year that I'm still working on it, but it made a difference. They said you don't say I've got to exercise. You said this a while ago. It's not I've got to, it's I get to. It's not even that I get to exercise. My mindset has to become I want to. And so I think those are really 3 categories. I've got to, I get to, I want to. When you get to the want to, and that's what I think writing, when you say I've got to write, I've got to write, well, that's like almost like a drug. And I don't mean that, it's like I gotta. Right. When you say I just want to, it's like I want to spend time with you. I want to go for a walk. All those things, when you become, it's a want to, there's a comfort in that. There's no urgency to it. It's just this, man, if I can get time to do this, that's the best part of my day.
Exactly.
And so I think that's a beautiful gift when you can go from got to get to want to.
I also think that there's the other side to that, or the way that I look at it is, I want to share this message with the world, and the world needs to hear what I have to say.
Yeah.
So it's a want and a need. You want to fulfill somebody else's need.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man, this has been such a cool conversation.
Okay, so I have a question for you.
Whoa.
I'm sitting here thinking about how many books have you written, Fred?
I've written technically 3, although the third one hasn't been published yet.
And may I ask how old you are?
I'm 26 years old.
26
believe it or not.
You're the same age as my baby boys.
Oh, there you go.
But surely I'm not old enough to be your mother. I think that
Of course not.
I am.
You're not a day over 25.
It's okay. It's all good. I've lived a long life and I've learned a lot and I've got a long way to go. So, 3 books, and I think that's very commendable and very applaudable.
Thank you.
But there's many more inside of you. Obviously, you've got a lot to say, and I think that that person out there right now who's going, I want to write a book. I want to write a book, but I'm wiping runny noses. I'm going to speak from that perspective. That's what I know about. I'm wiping runny noses. I'm running kids to football practice or dance rehearsal or whatever. What's for dinner? I've got to cook something for the bake sale. I've got to prepare to teach this lesson, whatever. You've got all these things going on. Your life's not over. Don't give up on writing that book because, when all the junk went down in my life in 2003, there was a lot that happened in 2003 and 2004 in my life, not just infidelity. There was a car accident that took my sister-in-law and a medical error in the hospital that took my nephew, and I lost my father, who was the dearest man in my life up until that point. Just so many things went on in that time in my life. And then I was still raising 4 children and had other responsibilities. I was a kind of a part-time worship leader at my church and those sort of things. I had a lot going on. And if I had said, I'm never going to do this and just given up, that would have been it. But I did have a blog. And I don't know that anybody read it, but I showed up every time I had an inspiration and I wrote in that blog because it might have made, and sometimes I go back and read and I think that makes no sense whatsoever. And then I think it's okay. They didn't read it, but you learned from it. Just know that you don't look at today and say, this is all there is, because I'm not, you do my math, Fred. How old was I in 2004? 42? That was 16 years ago. And it took me that long to get my book out. My book actually came out the week that they shut down the world.
Oh, wow.
My book released March the 10th. I had a book launch party on March the 12th, and on March the 13th, I found out that people at my party had been exposed to COVID, and it shut everything down. I had book signings lined up all over Georgia, Alabama, Florida, Tennessee, which is obviously my neck of the woods.
Right.
I had the potential to go to California and do something. I had just lots of things lined up to do, and they all just shut down. The doors closed, and all of a sudden I shifted, crazily enough, back into that mode of all of my people in my life were essential. So I was homeschooling my grandchildren. I never thought I would be found there again. So, just 2 weeks ago, I was lamenting to my husband, why did I write this book? Because, I've done nothing with it. Well, again, I'm preaching to myself this morning because this time last year, I was ready to go. Finally, it was my moment. I had raised children. I have done all this stuff. And now I'm going to go out and make a difference with my book. And then, everything shut down. So here I am today going, you know what? This exactly the same time this year as it was last year. The only thing that's different is 1 year has passed. So why can't you just jump on again, start lining up these book signings, get these things together, get them going. It's different. You may have to wear a mask. You may have to social distance, but figure out how to make it happen if it's that important to you. And do I want to do it? Yes, I want to do it. So.
Exactly. Every decision that we make just comes down to order of importance. That's all it ever is.
It's very true.
People like to use the excuse a lot that they don't have the time. Yeah. And I always like to joke that I say, oh, well, my day was 24 hours. How long was yours?
Okay, so Fred, I'm going to put a disclaimer on that, okay, for just a minute.
You're going to talk about kids, aren't you?
Let's talk about it, okay? Because I feel like there are people in this world who, you're right, we're all given the exact same amount of time. But some of us, how do I want to say this? It's like we make our time fit for us. And then others of us have people dictate how our time, a lot of it is spent. Now,
Okay.
again, I'm not discounting what you're saying, but like as my role,
No, I get it.
you know, I may say, I'm going to sit down and write. In fact, it's so funny. It's even laughable. Last year, not 2000, but the last year we were functioning happily. I put in my calendar, okay, these days of the week, I'm turning off my phone, I'm turning off everything, and I'm going to write. And it worked some, but they're just ways that there are demands placed on our lives when we are certain people. And there's nothing wrong with that. But making peace with it and going, I didn't get to write today, but I get another 24 hours tomorrow. And what can I shift around? What can wait? What needs to be done? What's most important? And figuring out how to make it happen. I agree with you. We are given the same amount of time, all of us. Some of us have more flexibility. Some of us have, but I can guarantee you that I've wasted a lot of time that I could have been using other ways. And
Sure.
And so, I appreciate and I love that mindset. And I think we have to have that mindset. I do. I think we 100% have to say, what did I do with my time? Okay, I've got plenty of time, but what did I do with it?
Sure.
I like this little Bible study I've been doing. I hadn't really thought about that in the back in the, days of the Old Testament, that the new day started actually the evening before at sundown. And so that was the start of the new day for them. And I think sometimes I might function better if I viewed my own life that way, that, tonight when I go to bed, I'm just getting a good start. I'm getting my nap first. I'm going to go to sleep and start my day that way.
Exactly.
And then when I wake up, I'm ready to go. There's the wide open opportunity because, because I think if I look at it the other way, I wake up, I'm not a morning person, give me my cup of coffee, let me get going. By the time I get going, I've had 3 phone calls, 15 emails, 2 texts, But if I go to bed with the mindset, well, when I get up in the morning before I do ABCD, I'll call writing W. The W is going to go in there first. Then I think I might function a little bit better. I don't know.
Right. I mean, the cool thing about what you said is there are times when we waste time, and the funny thing is that wasted time is essential time.
Yeah.
And a lot of people forget that. A lot of people want to be productive all day long, but escape time or wasted time or whatever you want to call it, just time for yourself to not be productive is necessary to filling all the pieces of that puzzle.
Yeah, I think so. I'm a big magazine reader. I love magazine articles
Sure.
because they're short and you can get a lot out of them. And,
that's perfect example.
And so, if I can find time when, again, I'm home, I work from home, I write. So I work from home. And so when I take a lunch, a lot of times I'll not sit down. So I try to make myself sit down and read a magazine article. One of my favorite magazines is Success Magazine. I love getting it because there's always something in there that motivates me. It lights a fire under me, and that's what it's supposed to do, right?
Sure.
And so I've tried to target areas in my life. I think probably anybody who saw that magazine arrive at my house would think that was coming from my husband, But no, I get it from me because somebody left a copy on an airplane. I picked it up and read an article out of it, and I was like, wow, I want to read more of this. And so that works for me to do that and to be motivated that way. So that might seem like wasted time, but it's really not. It's making me become who I want to be. And so that's the important thing that matters.
Exactly. Tonda, this has been amazing. We got to wrap up here. What words of wisdom or what would you like to leave our guests with today?
Again, I think going all the way back to what happened in my life, how I wrote my book and what it's about. that I'm not, it's kind of funny now that I'm about to say this. So many people have said, is that you? Because we have a place down on the panhandle of Florida. You're like, is that you? I'm like, no, it's not me. But I think the important thing in every single day of our lives is not our story, but who we choose to be in our story. And we are the one who gets to decide that. Nobody, I love the quote from Eleanor Roosevelt, nobody can make you feel inferior without your permission. There's so many things about who we are that we allow to be shaped and molded by other people. And we don't have to let that happen. We can be true to who we are. So it's not about your story. It's about who you choose to be in the story. It's not about if today you call yourself a writer. You may be 58 years old before you get to say that. But when you do, such a feeling of accomplishment. And I've only just begun.
I love that. That's amazing. Who you get to be in your story. Tonda, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Fred.
Awesome conversation. I love just where these go every time. We just have so much fun.
Well, you were awfully brave to have me on because I'm not a business person and I'm not, I think that's great. But I love what you do. And I think you're a great young man, and I want you to come see me in Middle Tennessee.
Definitely. I gotta come out to Tennessee anyway because I think it's an awesome place just to go visit. I've never been there before. So I'm ready. You, me, and Steve, we're gonna hit the town.
Hey, Steve and my husband are great cooks, and we always talk about getting together and letting them cook. So you can just come and we'll feed you. How about that?
Perfect. That's the best payment that I could ever receive.
All right. Well, thank you so much for having me on. I do appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for being here. And for everybody who's tuning in, we will see you again next time. Have a good one, guys.